Wanted to welcome everyone to the Community Service and Public Safety Committee. Monday, February 10th. And if you will, please all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And so, do we have an adoption or any changes anyone would like to make to the agenda? I have one. If we could just add to the agenda an opportunity for public comment prior to or after the approval of the minutes. That way, if anyone is here who has something specifically they want to say and don't want to wait, they can do that and do something else if they need to before we get to the non-agenda item public comments. And so with that change, is there an adoption of the agenda? Or is there an agreement to make that change to the agenda? Would you like to make a motion, please, for me, or a second?
So moved.
Okay. All in favor? Thank you. And now, do we have an adoption of the agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And do we have an approval of the minutes from September 16th, 2024? Steve, Councilman Alfred, you and I are the only ones who were on that committee at that time. So would you like to make a motion? All right, and all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And under new business, well, before we get to new business, is there anyone who has public comment that they'd like to make at this time? Okay. Under new business, we today wanted to get together at the suggestion of our new councilman. I thought it was a great idea. So we put together this meeting to have just a general conversation for community service and public safety, agenda priorities, things that we've heard about and want to make sure that we're focused on as we move through this year. So it's an open discussion, nothing specific, but I'm hoping that everyone on this dais will bring their thoughts forward. If you have any thoughts, those of you who are with us today, have any thoughts, we'd love to hear from you as well. And we may, and I would like to recognize that Councilwoman Tunner has joined us for our meeting today. Welcome. So that's what today's meeting is about, and I'll open it up for discussion. Would you like to start?
Start it.
Well,
get us going.
Get us going. Okay. Well, I think I'll pick up on one that seems to be a familiar theme as I've listened to my colleagues here, and that has to do with an interest in something along the lines of a Hilton Head police presence or enforcement presence. And I know, Steve Alfred, this is going to be tough. We've got to figure out this. You have had some thoughts about this for the last couple of years. And so would you like to start us off on what you were thinking?
Well, I come from a part of the country where municipal police forces are standard, and every municipality has one. In the southeastern part of the country, it's a little bit different because originally municipal powers were not granted to municipalities, they were granted to counties. And so the counties had all the municipal services for a long time. Over a period of time, that has changed, and municipalities have taken over some of those municipal services, such as in the case of Hilton Head, fire rescue services were taken over from the county. The police services remain with the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office. Over a period of years, it has become clear to many in the community that the services we receive from the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office are not what we would like to have. And that can be looked at in a variety of ways. It shows up very clearly in terms of traffic safety. There are very few traffic stops that take place in the county, in the island. But it can also be much more serious in the sense that while each of our gated communities have their own deputies, and many of them are authorized to carry weapons, they do not have the power of arrest and transport. So there have been instances behind the gates, for example, drunken driving. If a drunken driver is stopped in one of the gated communities by the deputies of that area, they do not have the power to transport the arrestee. They can't take him to jail. They can't put him in jail. There have been instances where request is then made to the sheriff's office to send a deputy out to transport the person to jail, and no deputy shows up. The consequences of that are the person who's been stopped has to be let free, and there's no prosecution, none at all. So we've got a variety of situations where the services are really not what we think they should be, ranging from very serious to much less serious. We've got a variety of different situations that we could look at in terms of where a police force of our own might be get started. But at the outset, it seems to me that the first step that I would recommend that we as a town take is to engage in a study, or more particularly an assessment, to engage in an assessment of what services do we have, what services do we need, what is the cost of those services, how would you go about setting them up. In other words, a very preliminary step that would give us a factual foundation for where we might go in the future. It is my hope that we could recommend, and we'll bring this up again at the strategic planning session at the 26th and 27th, take a very initial step of authorizing the towns engaging in an assessment of what our safety services are now, what they should be, costs, methods of implication, institution, and so forth.
For years, I would say every council has been faced with this and probably heard it, because I know 30 years ago, this was a subject that we in no way wanted to encounter. But the town's grown, and so has some of the problems. I think we are in a unique position that we have a town manager that ran a municipal police department. And when you talk about doing a study, I think Mark's viewpoint on it is more valuable than almost anything we could get, because we need to know the pros and the cons, and really the necessity. Do we really need a police force to achieve what we're trying to achieve? And until I get that kind of information, not just the pros and cons, but what the cost of it and how quickly it can be put together. I'm more interested in the cons than the pros. Sometimes you got to be careful what you ask for, right? And so until our town manager really speaks, and he probably has to the past councils. I don't know if you guys have had discussions about that prior to me being here, but I would really like to hear what he has to say about it. And I guess that would be done.
We haven't actually talked about it a lot, except for my bringing it up at the beginning of the year in strategic planning sessions. It hasn't been discussed at all. And certainly the town manager has a great deal of background and experience in this, and his views would be very important. I always tell him that I like to listen to his views. They're very important. And
yeah. And at some point, I don't know how that's delivered, but at some point, maybe in our strategic plan, we could just sit and listen to what he has to say about it.
So a few things that I think helps to get us to where you're both talking about is first getting an idea, getting a handle on what are the issues, that people are encountering on Hilton Head, how frequent they are, when do they occur, and if in general, where they occur. And part of that assessment would be, because during the daytime hours, we're fortunate to have the Sheriff's Department who we can call. We have code enforcement, we have who we can call. But there are hours of the day where we have no one that we can really call and depend on locally here on the island to make a quick response. And I think the point to the experience, Steve, I heard you speak to it before, behind the gated community and the DUI incident that you refer to, that happens outside the gates more than once. I have gotten reports to me. So over the 6 years, I've had many reports of many things. And I try to encourage those who contact me who are disappointed, upset, that if they could take a moment during their experience, and if they're working with the Sheriff's Department, and ask the deputies to please make a record, to always have a record made of what it is that they've been called out to help with. And that way we have some background, some records, some reports to be able to rely on, to then be able to assess how frequent of a problem it is and all of those things that I mentioned and probably more. So I do think that we need to have some data to help push us to that place. And some places that we currently can get data from is we can go to the Sheriff's Department, we can ask them to give us a report on what has happened. We can ask our Director of Public Safety to give us a report on the incidents and the types of things that he deals with on a regular basis. And then we can ask those out in the community to have, maybe we can have a little forum with them so that they can tell us about what other experiences are happening that they're dealing with. And I have heard from those types of community safety committees in the past, recently, and I think we have a representative that hopefully will speak to us a little bit about that, but that's one community. But if we did that broadly across the island, we may be able to start to assemble some of the information that would help with the assessment that you're referring to, and certainly the pros and cons from our town manager's experience would be greatly appreciated along the way. And then the general costs. I mean, over the years, we have had discussions. They've been small discussions, but we have had discussions. And we've always asked, well, just give us a back of the envelope kind of sketch in terms of what this might look like. And is it, 365 days a week, a year, 24 hours a day, or is it from the time periods when we don't have code here that we may need some additional reinforcement in the evenings, over the evening hours? When is it that it's important? And so I think those types of general questions, if we could start weeding through them, might give us the information that we need to begin to really consider how strong a push we need to make on this, and whether it's really a community service that we're providing with merit. So.
We get reports from the Sheriff's Department, right?
We do.
Do they include the gated community reports? Are they complete? They are? Who said yes?
Yeah,
yes.
Steve did.
They're island-wide reports.
They are, and they're complete.
On automobiles, thefts, so I want to get later on to bicycles and so forth, but they don't deal with bicycles.
So the question is to the completeness is, I think, what I've been concerned about. We do get reports about motor vehicle accidents and theft and that sort of thing. It's the completeness that I'd like to get a bigger picture on. And that's why I always recommend to people, if you have a need to call the Sheriff's Department out, always make sure that before they leave, they've created a report and you have a case number, so that you have some documentation of instances where things have happened, but so that they're built into the statistics, so that it is complete. Maybe we'll find that every single one of them, that's the case, but there are many times when I get those reports where nothing has been done, and people are frustrated about that. And I see a hand up, and I am going to welcome comments from our visitors here, guests, and yes, residents.
Because it is kind of an open discussion.
It is an open discussion. Yes,
My
sir.
name's Chester Williams. Just two things. One, to reiterate what Mr. Simone said, this is a common recurring discussion here at Town Hall. But the other thing, with Mr. Alford, I want to correct a statement that you made. The town's EMS wasn't taken over from the county. They were way back in the day, and I say back in the day, in the late 80s, I guess. There was an independent volunteer Hilton Head Island Rescue Squad, and Forest Beach Public Service District, which along with Sea Pines Public Service District were the precursors to South Island Public Service District, also had their own EMS department. The town took over the EMS services of both of those. So it didn't come from the county, rather it was, one was a volunteer organization, the other was one run by one of the PSDs.
Thank you, Chad. One of the aspects of this is money. And I had two thoughts on that. One of which is that type of services that could be delivered can be segmented. And we can take on a particular type of policing services, or two or three at different stages, so that we don't have to, if we do decide at some point to go forward with that, we wouldn't need necessarily to have a very large expenditure off the bat. It could be done on a gradual basis. Related to that, as you know, we have been reserving money, $2 million a year, in the event that a lawsuit between the town and the county about extra charges that the county imposes on Hilton Head beyond what it imposes on other communities for getting lesser services than we get in other communities. So there is a reserve fund at this point stands at $10 million that would be available if the lawsuit result, which hopefully will be soon, is favorable.
Are there any other public comments? Anyone else who wants to join in the conversation? Feel free to raise your hand, come up to the podium. We'd love to hear from you.
Ms. Becker?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you asking for public comment on this agenda item, or are you for people that signed up?
Do we have people who signed up?
We do.
Oh, okay. Well, let's call on them first.
I have Ashley Phillips.
Okay. I'm opening it up to anyone, but if those who took the time to sign up would like to come up first, you're certainly welcome to. Ashley, if you're...
Good morning. Ashley Phillips, Hilton Head Island resident, Indigo Run. Apparently, this is a hot topic because it was what I had written some notes on here to speak about today, which was crime. I've been listening to these meetings for years and nothing's happening and the crime's getting worse. So I wrote down, can we get a real crime report? And where is crime happening and what kind of crime is happening? And the thing that really alarmed me very recently was the incident with the acid on the woman that got acid thrown on her on Pembroke. And there wasn't really a whole lot of information that came out to the public about who the suspects were, anything that I could find. And it's just kind of gone away. I haven't been able to find any update on that. And it's a little alarming to know there are people like this in our community that we don't know anything about. And are the police looking for them? So it would be great to get an update on issues. I mean, it's a public safety issue. And I think it's very important as a member of the community to know what's happening and know how to protect myself and know where I should go and not go. So that's really all. So thank y'all.
Thank you. I think that's the general sentiment that I was referring to, that there are a number of different things, both that we do find out about and that we don't find about. And all of those questions generally point back to one of us or to our town manager or our public safety director, who are expected to know all the details and we don't. And that's frustrating for everyone. I certainly want to be able to be responsive, and I know that my colleagues do. So that's one aspect that I think should be noted, that we need to be in the loop with what's happening on the island. Town council should be involved in at least the knowledge about what is happening within our municipal limits. So thank you for that comment. Anyone else? Yes, please, Joy.
Name is Brenda Armstrong. I live over off of Gumtree. And I'd just like to talk about the traffic that's over there and the accidents that are happening. The development that I live in now is we're getting more and more children that are coming into the neighborhoods. And there's no bus service over there, and these kids are walking across Gumtree. And it's only a matter of time before somebody gets hit, because there is nothing over there to say that there is to slow down, this is this is a school zone. There is, but the kids are they just walk out. They're not gonna walk down across to their high school. They just go right across the street, and the people are crazy over there trying to get out of Gumtree and coming onto Gumtree. So I'm concerned about the impact of the children more and more to the neighborhood and the walking. The town wants them to get exercise and get out and be active. It's kind of hard when you're in that particular area right now. As I said, it's only a matter of time if somebody gets hurt over there, and there is no police presence. So that's my comment for today.
Thank you. I was not aware of that. It's important information.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate it. So that's actually an easy.
Not going to get any easier with funneling traffic out of North Point too.
Right. So I think that's one request that we can pass on to our town manager, is to kind of just ask that we look at that area to see what the situation is, what we could do, how we can help possibly with extending pathways and that sort of thing. Signage for sure, maybe a presence in the morning and in the evening.
Katie wants to speak.
Katie? That's okay.
Katie Henderson, Hilton Head Plantation. Along that point to the North Point development, and then the other new development that's going in over there that right now is landlocked, all of that needs to be considered when you're talking about children, schools, and all of that stuff. And I hope you guys will really take a good look at all of that, because it isn't safe on Gumtree.
Thank you. Thank you. Beth? Sure.
Good morning. This is Beth Petro. I'm not officially here on behalf of Forest Beach Owners Association, but I am a member and I am a part of the safety committee. So mainly this morning, I wanted to see what the agenda and kind of the plans were for the Public Safety Committee over the course of the next year. But the Forest Beach Owners Association Public Safety Committee is very determined to work with the town and see what we can do to make Forest Beach a safer place. I know my office was broken into on Pope Avenue on New Orleans Road a week and a half ago, as well as several of the properties that I manage for Beachside Getaway on North Forest Beach and throughout the area. So I would definitely engage you all to be a part of the monthly meetings and the Public Safety Committee for Forest Beach when that happens. They'd love to see a bigger presence, as Tamara's been involved with our last meeting as well. So just wanted to say.
Hang on, Beth. I know you guys have looked into security.
Yes.
Hiring your own security. Where is that?
That is currently, as far as, and again, I'm not speaking officially as Forest Beach, but as a member of Forest Beach, and what I've heard through the meeting is that's somewhat waiting to see what relationship we can work with the town. But we have engaged several security companies and gotten quotes for what it would cost to have private security throughout Forest Beach, as well as the possibility of raising the dues for the Forest Beach Association for the members to see what we can engage and become a part of.
How effective have they told you they could be? Because what are they limited to do actually? As a security guard driving around a neighborhood, maybe Bob would know.
Bob, you've been a part of some of these conversations with them as well.
In fact, I just provided the crime stats to Forest Beach.
To Massimo and Matt.
I mean, what's even if you hire security, what's their ability?
They have a limited ability.
Right.
Councilman Alfred's correct on that. They do have the power of arrest. They don't have the power of transport. But in a community like Forest Beach, I'm not sure what authority they have. That's a bit different. That's not like a private community. That's public roadways. And I do the crime statistics for Hilton Head. So I can say this, the property crime is down. It's down across the board for the last couple of years. Violent crime kind of remains the same, about 90 incidents per year. And that would be sexual assaults, homicides, which you may have one every other year, aggravated assaults. So it's kind of steady when it comes to violent crime, but property crime is down for sure. I look at this every year and say, wow, that's impressive. All the vehicle break-ins, apparently the word got out, lock your cars. So that's on the decline as well. And for the residents, I'd recommend signing up for Everbridge. That's a sheriff's office app that they use to pass on information. Just like the information I pass.
What's it called?
Everbridge, Nixle.
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 N-I-X-L-E.
Sir?
I just said N-I-X-L-E, that's what you're referring to. Nixle.
Yes, sir. It's Everbridge app is what it is. But I provide that information to town council when there's a major incident. I get all the pass downs every day from the Southern Command, and so I'm aware of what's going on. As far as the asset attack, that's still under investigation. So they don't release a lot of details when it's under investigation. But if you want me to step up that a little bit so you can get it out to your constituents, that'd be fine with me.
And that wouldn't change with our own police department. You're not going to release.
Not at all. And I ran investigations for years, so I can tell you that those details they have some persons of interest, but making a case requires probable cause.
And that's one of the things I think one step that we have taken over the last couple of years is having you here. That's made a big difference in terms of our ability to do things, the expansion of our code enforcement and what they're looking for. And that was a good first step. I certainly would love to have more information though about what is going on so that when we get asked, and I'd also like to see against what it is that I hear than what's being reported through documentation.
Every call for service is logged. So anytime the sheriff's office is called, there is a record of that. If it requires a written report is there. If it's a larceny, if it's any part 1 or part 2 crime, a property crime or a violent crime, it's recorded. Suspicious activity, everything is recorded. So that information is available to the public.
Sometimes anecdotally, I can tell you that the reports that I get from residents is that someone will show up and it's dismissed. It's not worthy. Your insurance isn't going to cover it anyway, so there's no point, or those types of reasons for not making a case report for them.
Those are
and so those get missed.
I need to be made aware of that so I can address that because that's unacceptable.
So
I think the sheriff would say the same thing.
So then can I just make a general statement if that's something that happens to you, which is what I tell people, make sure that there's a report written and that you get a case number so that you have those in the statistics that you report back to us or that the sheriff reports back to us, because with somewhat confidence, I can say that those incidents are not being included. And we don't know without knowing that what's going on about within the assessment of where, what, and how much it would ultimately cost to have someone in addition to your efforts and the sheriff's efforts. So if everyone could do that, that'll help, and then we'll rely on your information as well. We appreciate it. I know it's good that you're here.
Any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you.
Ma'am?
I can finish. Mainly Forest Beach doesn't want to have to hire a private security. We would like to be able to have the force that we should have on the island. It is not a PUD. It is an ungated community. So we don't feel like we should have to have a private security, but we're willing to obviously look into whatever we have to do to make sure that our area is being properly maintained. So as far as what we hope to get out of it initially, it would likely be just visibility, because right now there's absolutely none within the community. And that would be the goal. But the goal is not to have our own private security, but we are obviously going to do whatever we can to make our area safe as possible.
And that visibility aspect, I think, is important too. I mean, overnight, it's important that, you know, sheriff's departments, whomever, that their cars roaming and keeping an eye on things helps to deter some crime. We know that. I mean, one of the reasons I was always told that we love to have our deputies live here on the island and why we give them stipends is so that their cars are a visual presence, right? And that helps to deter some of the crime that we're concerned about. So it's those overnights. Paul, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Beautiful weather.
Nice now.
There is a bit of a disease going around where.
Can you state your name for the record?
Paul Shearer, Sea Pines. There's too many elected representatives everywhere that don't seem to think it's important to enforce the law, or would like to take the law into their own hands. There's a saying that's been lost, and it's called zero tolerance. And I think that if the council were to adopt a zero tolerance attitude, you would find crime to clean up quickly. The idea that one policeman should arrest the same person 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 times because it's a swinging door. There's no budget in the world that can survive that. You have to have a consequence for crime, and if there's no consequence and you're in and out in 2 or 3 hours, then the police force cannot operate. If you have zero tolerance and you start to enforce consequences to crime, the job of the policeman goes way down because he's got less crime to deal with. So it would be my suggestion to think about. I'd love to see on the little plaque there where the Rotary Club is and the Lions Club that Hilton Head is a zero tolerance community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other comments on this topic?
I'm thinking about what Mr. Bromwich just said to us, along with the other topic that I wanted to bring up. And would like to suggest that we give serious consideration to have him make periodic reports to this committee about the various elements of criminal activity in the community. Right now we have Jeff Purdy coming once a quarter with lots and lots of statistics. I think we might have some benefit if we had monthly or maybe some other frequency reports directly from Mr. Bromwich as to what's going on in our community. And I'd like to add on to it the other subject that I think we should have direct information on, and that is bicycle safety and pathway safety. For many years, when we had Darren Shoemaker working in the engineering department, there were monthly and ultimately annual statistical reports prepared as to where all of the crashes between bikes and automobiles took place, and were there transports to hospital, were there fatalities, and so on. And those were done monthly and summarized annually, which provided an extraordinarily good foundation for saying, here's where we need to take the next steps. Since Mr. Shoemaker's retirement or principal retirement 2 years ago or so, that hasn't happened. Personally, I would like to suggest and recommend that we also reinstitute that. And my suggestion is that Mr. Bromwich make reports generally about crime activity, and that we add on bicycle pedestrian information to that periodic report from Mr. Brumage.
Thank you, Steve.
That's the first time and last time I'm going to call you Mr. Brumage. So.
Thank you, Steve. So I don't know.
Flash will do. Just call him Flash.
I don't know whether or not that necessarily, and we can work this out certainly with his schedule, needs to be a formal report in front of us, or if we could just get a written report so that we have an idea of where we're heading, and then maybe we can incorporate that in the quarterly reports. And the bike ped safety is certainly important, especially given the comments with regard to Gumtree Road in particular. All right, anything else on that general topic? Okay. I do feel, as a resident who lives outside the gates, that it is difficult to know who you can rely on and when. And so I sympathize with the idea of having to provide a community security that may do little more than provide a presence. But we know specifically down in the North and South Forest, the Caligny area, that there are quite a few issues that are going on down there that need direct attention. And it is a matter of safety, personal and property safety down there. And it's around the clock. And it is 365 days a year. So we will work and try to work really closely together with you on that. All right, was anyone else have something else on their list that they?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, well, why don't you jump right in?
I mean, I'm sure when we all get together at the end of the month, all these things will come back up, but just for this committee and our community services, I, for years, talked about a small public works department. And I think the temperature for that, I think you're past it. I think this town's past that point, and it's time to do something about it. There are so many small issues, maintenance issues that just a small four-person small public works crew could do. You need a couple trucks, you need 4 people that really know what they're doing, and a couple small pieces of equipment, and working 300 days a year, approximately, you can get a lot of work done. It's, I think it's essential, the town, you know, some of this procurement process for getting bids to fix small items is too time consuming, it's wasteful. And if we have the right crew on hand, we could get a lot done every single day and alleviate some of these issues and these problems that become big issues. I've got a lot of examples, none that, you know, would take the time to give you today, but a lot of examples that we could at some point talk about.
Can you give us one or two? Because I am interested in hearing what your thoughts are.
An example, a broken pipe which is pulling soil in, and it creates a hole in asphalt, you know, in the road above it. It's a small issue that could be fixed in a couple hours most of the time, but I've seen it take over 6 months for the town to get to it and their contractor, because they were busy or you had to go out for bid. I've seen a $1,000 repair turn into a $25,000 repair. So these are small items that we could take care of in-house if the people knew what they were doing. And you got to hire the right people, and they're out there. These people are out there. There's a lot of guys and girls in this field of work that are nearing retirement and would love to come and create a public works department and get some real work done for low cost versus going out to bid to contractors that we really don't have. That's the problem, you know. And I guess, you know, I've heard it from some of the staff that we just can't find enough contractors that do certain types of work to bid for the town's work. And anything, you know, $25,000, $30,000, $40,000 and under, we could easily take care of by ourselves. Save a lot of money, a lot of time. These small problems turn into large problems when, and most really expensive problems when you let them lie there without any repair.
Some of this, so on my sheet,
Yeah.
I have roads and drainage. In anyone who wants to can correct me or add to this, roads or their state-owned roads, and therefore the drainage becomes a little bit more complicated. So I think it's a good discussion.
Yeah, well, I'm not against taking over certain roads, and we've talked about that. Mm-hmm. And for a number of reasons, not just for a public works maintenance program. I'm not talking about a public works department that's hanging Christmas lights.
Okay.
I'm talking about a public works department that's getting some work done. And one of the really tough issues that has been created over the last 20 years is that behind the gates. There's so much maintenance going on behind the gates that those gated communities are set up to do that work themselves. They have their own public works. But the problem is now a lot of these things have become part of the town and the stormwater utility. And they sit there for months, and some of them for a couple of years before they can get on the agenda to be fixed. There needs to be a way, in my opinion, for some of this stormwater utility fee to be allocated to the gated communities that already, or any community that's already set up to do some of their own work, so that we won't have to go again to bid and rely on contractors that do not exist, and allow them to fix their own problems. And I know we do some of it now, but it takes a long time for that to happen. And I don't know if our town manager wants to speak to it right now or not, or at a different time, but there's a lot of delay in getting problems fixed where they could be fixed immediately behind the gate by their own utility companies.
I'm sympathetic to what you're saying because you've shared with me in the past some of the stories of repairs that have taken too long and cost too much, could have been done
right
much easier. I think it's important to recognize that those probably fall into several different categories:
sure.
Roads, sewers, parks, pathways, and as Councilman Becker pointed out, we don't own a lot of the roads, but we do have control over all the rest of it. What I have learned recently is that as a result of the retaining of some new personnel, such as Derek Coxum, that a lot of this maintenance work has picked up significantly. So I would at least like to hear a report on this at some point as to, we may already be addressing a lot of the concerns which you raised, which are quite legitimate, as to where we stand with that.
So it sounds like it's a worthy conversation to continue, perhaps one that during the strategic plan you want to bring up, so sure. that our town manager has, I know he's here with us today, but has an idea of what you're thinking and what you would like to see happening in the future. And through this committee, we can certainly participate in all of that. One thing that I forgot to do that I was hoping that, can we pull up what our purpose is? I sent this to the council members here today on the committee this last evening, just to kind of remind us what it is that we as the Community Service and Public Safety Committee do. And it's up there on the screen, and to your point, it considers the efficiency and effectiveness of town provided services, which include water and sewer services, pathways, and those drainage safety, those sorts of things. So I think you're within the realm of what it is that we should be focusing on, and it's worthy certainly of a bigger discussion with a lot of various aspects being drawn into it to see what the next steps would be. And so, are there any public comments? Anyone who would like to join in that conversation? And then, obviously, always two things that are my first check boxes to investigate, review, and determine whether or not I'm a small government person. And so every time we talk about a new department or additional expenditures, I always want to balance that off against, just like with the police department, what is the value that we're going to get out of it, and what service do we really provide that isn't provided for by a nonprofit, which we are so blessed in this community to have many of, or the county, whose responsibility it is to take care of those things, and we're likely paying them through our taxes and fees. Seeing no other conversation about that, oh, yes, we do. Welcome back, Brenda. Yes, that way you can be heard. Thank you.
So Steve, coming from Massachusetts, we get a lot of snow up there and ice. Were they not be able, with the Department of Public Works, were they not able to do the roads because they didn't have enough people to do it? When we had the snowstorm like 3 or 4 weeks ago? Or was that not part of the DPW's job? Because we come from, the DPW takes care of all of that. So I was just wondering if that was part of it. You know, because 4 people is not a lot of people to have on staff for DPW.
I wouldn't know how to answer that, Mark, probably answer it, but you know, we do not have a snow plow.
Okay. Hi.
Brenda, Mark, Brenda.
Hi, everybody. Well, I can talk about that specific case study. Well, first and foremost, I think Mr. DeSimone said, let's consider starting a Department of Public Works. And so we don't have a DPW here. I think that the conversation that we have, and I've been taking some good notes, to talk a little more about strategic plan, right? And how we balance government service and budget. Because I heard a couple things today. Let's scale to improve our services, and let's keep the services and what we do smaller in size for government. And so when the storm came through, it aligns with everything you've talked about today. Ms. Becker, you talked about road right-of-way ownership or more responsibility, right? Stormwater in the ditches, public safety, where you stripe, how you sign, how you put a sign up. All of those factors, whether it's stormwater, whether it's striping, whether it's speed, whether it's condition of the road, let alone when the storm hits and the ice is here and the snow is piled, they're not our roads to plow. So the simple answer here is, when there was snow and ice on our roads, our conversation with Beaufort County and DOT was important, because they're DOT roads, right? US Highway 278, that's a US highway managed in part and parcel by the state. And even then some, the program to manage the snow was a partnership, or some sort of operating agreement, I should say, with Beaufort County. We had no authority to get on the road. So I couldn't call, 4 Bubbas with a plow, let alone our own team with our truck and a plow to plow the streets. I did not have the responsibility or authority to be on somebody else's property. We took care of our own. We took care of Town Hall as much as we needed to, but mostly we helped at the hospital with their invite and need for our help, and we dug out our fire stations, right? So we weren't able to go plow the streets. And all these things that you're talking about, most of what you're talking about today is back to me, and then going to ask a different agency if they will. So I'm happy to hear these conversations, and I look forward to talking a lot more in strategic plan session with you.
Thank you. Yes. Melinda, Councilwoman Tunner.
Melinda Tunner, Palmetto Hall. Thank you for putting that up on the board. I was not aware of all the areas that you're responsible for, and in regards to dialogue and services. One of the ones that struck me, again, was the beach. So I know we had landed on an approach regarding beach parking, and there was going to be next steps with the development of a committee of constituents from various areas to get together and talk about the Coligny area. So I was wondering from a process perspective how this was going to work and what the participation of this committee was going to be. I know we've implemented the resident beach pass for this year with no cost, but I was just at Fish Hall Beach the other day, and there, the parking requirement or the parking monitoring is not there. So I'm just wondering, when all of those other pieces are going to be falling into place, because there were some economics developed in regards to that we were going to remove the cost for our residents, but we were going to be charging parking in these other communities. And at least at Fish Hall, I didn't see that happening. And actually, when I went there, I had people come up and ask me. They didn't know I was on town council. We were just generally talking about, oh, I thought this was in place. When is it coming? So following up on all of that, I'd just like to understand where this committee falls in that process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as the other members of the committee know, I sent a memo before this meeting about possible subjects. What Ms. Tunner just raised was one of them, as to whether we should be getting involved with that. So I agree with Ms. Tunner on that point.
And number 3, not that there were any specific order on mine, is a parking status update. So just a comment. I don't know the status currently either. And I would like to know more so that we can follow up and know where we're sitting at this point with regard to that. Sure, thank you. Welcome back, our town manager again.
I don't have much to add. The kickoff meeting with the mayor's committee was scheduled during the ice storm. We rescheduled it for a couple days from now. Mayor Perry will attend, as will Mr. DeSimone. So that kickoff will start. It's organized in terms of scope and next steps. I would ask, I think a lot of folks are asking about the beach parking. The go live date hasn't started yet, so we're just getting ready for the season. The resident passes, all of that information should be fully somewhere on our website, so let me go check on that. But the go live date starts soon. The program will be in year 1, right, as I think town council agreed to collectively late last year. Year 1 will include everything with the exception of the Pope Avenue corridor parking lots, and that through this committee that y'all asked me to help with the mayor with, and now Mr. DeSimone, to assess further the Pope Avenue parking, right? The revenue, the scope, the scale, the logistics of that. So stay tuned. Haven't made a lot of progress on that yet, full disclosure. I will as soon as I get through strategic plan and balancing my budget. What else am I missing?
With regard to the parking, I guess the go live date is one concern. Okay. That sounds like the primary point that was being asked.
We'll get that message out in a press release, and then I'll also send you an email. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you weren't interrupting at all. I would like to know more about the mayor's committee. It's first I'm hearing that anything has been assembled, and as the chair of the Community Service and Public Safety Committee, I'd like to be a part of that conversation, since it comes through my committee with these fine elected officials as well. So that's a request that I'm making of you, and I'll send an email to our mayor as well, following up on that.
Yes, ma'am.
But if we have a date for all of those other folks and know when the things are going to be put into place, so that monitoring and because Councilwoman Tunner is right, we did have an expectation of some revenue offsetting some of the other revenue that we anticipated normally, but now that we've given that back through free parking for our residents, which is appropriate, we need to kind of juggle that so that you don't have a bigger hole in your budget than we'd like to see.
Right, and I'm even reminding myself right now, when we brought forward the program, the policy, and the framework of it, we anticipated free parking. We showed budgets through, I believe, CSPS. Mm-hmm. We showed budgets, and when town council adopted it, all of that was assumed as part of the program for year 1. And so that includes free resident parking and no parking up and down the Pope Avenue corridor, and that would supplement or add to the revenue in the future should you should you vote, should you agree to bring that forward. So from a budgetary standpoint, I just want to add some confidence to the matter that we're planned for it, we projected it, the revenues are projections, so we're going to monitor it closely. But we're going to go live. Ironically, I was taking some notes this weekend and said, what are the highest priorities right now outside of budget strat plan? One of which is this parking program. So we'll kick it off. I think Ms. Becker, as the chair, loop you into this meeting that we're about to have might be the best, easiest, most efficient way to bring the committee into that.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Right, any other comments? Anything from, you had anything else on your list of items that you wanted to consider today, bring out so we can have a conversation?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I want to make sure that I make, just a few things that I know that we're working on. There's an abandoned boat policy on the books. There's some other abandoned boat concerns that link in to some reported crime issues that I think we need to investigate and get more information on down in the Palmetto Bay area. We've talked about that. I know that a particular in Parks and Rec is part of our responsibilities. There has been an ongoing concern for the seniors that our senior center isn't quite what the expectations are and the needs are for our residents. And so I've been working on it, but I think we need to put a little bit more emphasis on trying to figure that one out. We've talked a little bit about public safety. I know I've mentioned in a separate conversation, and our town manager is on it, with regard to how when a road pathway is closed, we have another safe alternative. And so I know he's working on that. Also working on a concern that repeatedly has come up with regard to fireworks on private property. There's been a number of complaints. It is bothersome to the folks in the area who are subjected to these late at night. They don't know in their mind if it's gunfire. They don't know if what the case may be, but they do know that if you have PTSD, we have a lot of veterans on our island, that it's bothersome. We know that it bothers our pets and the wildlife around us. And so there's been some concerns, and I know that we're working on some solutions to that. So more about that to come. Municipal court, those are some conversations that we've started in the past that we need to stay focused on our beach and the services that we have there to provide a safe environment, a clean environment for our residents and for everyone who visits us. And then one thing that falls more, I guess, into the community service nature of our responsibility here is I've been giving a lot of thought about workforce housing. And as I've thought about it, I question what is the real data that we're using to make decisions. And it seems to me that everyone relies on a consultant's report from 2017, 2018 that was written that may or may not be valid, and certainly may or may not be valid now. And so as we've been having these conversations about workforce housing, it seems to me we'd never calculate in the progress that's really been made. While it may not be government involvement, which, you know, again, as a limited government person, I'm not convinced we should really have a real role here other than perhaps facilitating and helping to work out some details. But as we've been talking about this, it occurs to me we don't know what's been taking place other than anecdotally knowing that there have been several private entities who have converted old commercial buildings and the like into workforce housing opportunities. So that's one. I'd like to have a better picture of what we currently have available through those efforts. And then I'd also like to know, which I don't think we ever did, was of the workforce on Hilton Head, I'd like to know how many people are actually interested in living on Hilton Head. And of those who are interested in living on Hilton Head, what their hopes and dreams are. Are they interested in living in a 210 square foot space with another unknown individual? Or are they interested in bringing and raising a family here on Hilton Head? And what type of housing we're actually supplying to meet those needs? And then one step further is to revisit or to visit the idea of a more efficient transportation system so that our bridge doesn't become as congested as folks seem to feel it is during those early morning and afternoon commutes. And that would entail speaking more broadly to some of those that we collaborate with, the county and others, with a park and ride, so that people who want to live where they want to live in a way they want to live, but still want to work on Hilton Head or be a part of our community, would be able to park their car or take their transportation from their home to a place where they could then transfer to a shuttle and get to their jobs. So those are a couple of thoughts with regard to, and I'm not interested in a high-priced consultant. I think some of this information to begin a conversation and trying to narrow down the scope to making sure that we're actually addressing a problem that may be significant and may be less significant than maybe people think with regard to workforce and housing issues. A simple survey or a collection of data that may already exist within the development office would be helpful to begin those conversations and thoughts. Any input in that thought?
Just a little bit on one point that you raised with which is the potential to reinstate a municipal court.
Okay.
Next week, I understand that we will have short-term housing proposals for modifications. That's one area where the municipal court might be very effective in terms of dealing with violations under short-term rentals. So I would just simply ask the town manager if he and staff think it's appropriate to associate the municipal court subject with the discussion of short-term rentals coming up.
Mark, do you have any thoughts on that, or is that a question for another time?
The question is, who did you like in last night's game?
Eagles. Go Birds.
Ben was happy.
Whole family was happy. I'm sorry, I was taking a note.
Yeah,
about Breeze
Ms.
Trolley.
Becker raised a series of matters that it might be desirable for the committee to look into. One of them was municipal court. And my question is whether, in connection with the presentation next week of new proposed rules on short-term rentals, which is, I think, one of the areas where a municipal court might be helpful, whether you and staff thought that you could associate the municipal court question with the short-term rental question next week.
We could, but we're not prepared to. So I would say that we should continue to move down the current path of parking fees or parking citations, as well as an improvement to our short-term rental citations, separate the municipal court. For now, I think we should bake into to the town code, those administrative fees. Municipal court's and I would say a different exercise, that if you would all collectively as a town council want me to reestablish with you a municipal court, that has to be, in my mind, and a recommendation, an outcome of our strategic plan session.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the answer.
I took some notes today. It'd probably be healthy if I repeated some things back to you that we're hearing, so y'all know where we're at going into strat plan. Would that help? Let me get mine.
Okay. While he does that, are there any other comments from anyone in the public with regard to any of the information you've heard today? I appreciate y'all coming out. Katie?
Love it.
It's just nice.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I hope that that's what you can expect in the future from this committee, is an open dialogue with our residents and amongst the council members, and we encourage all of our council members to join us.
Whenever you're ready. I just took some notes today because I want to make sure that as we go into strategic plan, one, I know that you all are talking to each other and to me and our facilitator. But I took away from today some additions coming out of community service, public safety, discussion, police department assessment, public works team. We have a facilities department, so how all that factors in, we can figure that out. But definitely a public works team, I would say that goes hand in hand, but somewhat separate from the stormwater utility program enhancements. Know that in the budget proposal this year, you will see at least right now, and I'm about to start meeting with all of town council, a proposal to increase the use of our fund balance. It's a little more than $10 million for stormwater, to put some more dollars in the reimbursement account so that those reimbursements are funded. Some of it is about a funding issue as much as it is about procurement and logistics. So know that that will be in there. A municipal court path forward. You also talked about right-of-way acquisition, and that's more road, stormwater, safety, pathways, speed, whatnot. I will follow up on the pedestrian and traffic safety assessment at Gumtree. It sounds like Bob is connected with the Forest Beach Public Safety Committee, but we'll make sure that they know we are there. Beach parking status update, Ms. Becker, I just sent an email to add you to that meeting. It's in a few weeks, okay. So we'll get that kicked off. I have a preliminary memo just really scoping our to-dos in the work we're going to do, so I'll share that with you. I'll clarify the go live date. We'll send another press release out. I'll check in with Sean Leiniger and Derek Coaxum and Bob on this as they're the point, but we'll get another press release out on the go live date, and so that our residents and our visitors know what to expect, and a reminder for all of us. Bike safety reports, Darren's past reports, a plan and a path forward. I know that we've done some, but definitely not as consistent as what Darren's was doing, so we'll resurrect that. Housing data follow-up, and a few other things. So I think I grabbed everything. There's a pretty significant pipeline of agenda items. If we add fireworks, municipal court, if there's any amendments to code outside of the planning world, they would all come through this committee for the most part. And so there's a pretty robust pipeline of agenda items just based upon even today for the next 12 months. And Ms. Becker, you and I can work on getting those agendas set and a pipeline realized for a few months out.
I'm not sure that I heard you reference the possibility of Mr. Brummage making periodic reports on a more frequent basis than Jeff Purdy currently does. And I'd like you at least think about that.
How often? What does he do? Quarterly?
Well, Purdy's quarterly.
And you want monthly? Every other month? Just what's the tempo the committee would prefer?
Gentlemen, do you have something in mind? I'm okay with a written, just to, just kind of a quick down and dirty. It doesn't have to be anything.
Right. It's just from my vantage point, if I could be so kind to add. I have here reports, fire rescue, Beaufort County Sheriff's, Shore Beach Services. I think that you would benefit, we'd all benefit from some regular Shore Beach service and our beach program reports. Department of Public Safety, I think that Bob reporting to me on short-term rentals, parking, LMO code provisions. He is a liaison with Beaufort County Sheriff's Office. Bike safety statistics. We talked about roads and drainage and pathways, but I think that's more of an operational improvement as we're approving public projects or pathway infrastructure issues. We just make sure we're approving them more clearly. Island Rec, Breeze Trolley, and at some point when we have a court, I'm sure you'd want to hear from the clerk of court. So I want to encourage all of you, because we have so much work to do, noise, construction hours, short-term rentals, municipal court, election, park rules, abandoned boats, fireworks, and a whole bunch of other things, that we not make this committee so report-driven that we get caught up in just simply understanding the data. So let me think through, and Ms. Becker, I'll talk with you, because an email to the committee different than an email to council on my end. Maybe we just need to start putting together some different reports that you all receive. And I'll let you all decide on how often that is. But if we're staying busy reporting, we're going to not have enough time to actually do some of the work you're also asking me to implement.
Right, and part of this today was simply not a direct request for something specific to happen, but the beginning of a conversation. And these topics of conversation seem to have some consensus and some community support. So I think we can find a pathway through what makes sense, because we don't want to overload, but we do need the data to be able to assess the next steps for the council. So I think further discussion is definitely warranted. I appreciate your willingness to do that with us. I do also want to say that we did adopt a commercial noise ordinance at our last town council meeting. And I got 2 comments over the weekend from folks who were thrilled that their communities were quiet for the first time in a while on a Sunday. And they were very appreciative of it. So I'm not sure what we used to get the word out, but apparently somebody knew, and that has worked out well, or maybe it was just a coincidence. I'm not sure, but that was a good move and good work, and thanks to everyone.
Mr. Bromage all that credit right now?
Sure, we can give him all that credit right now. Was it? Well, all the credit then definitely too. And again, it's because of a lot of the efforts that you do that we don't even know you're doing, that I think we can build some confidence in believing we're on the right path to solving some of these problems. So thank you. The last thing, unless you had something else?
No, are you done with me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. This is helpful for me getting into strategic plan, to simply know where y'all as a committee want to head. So thank you for your time today.
We appreciate it. Thank you. The other thing that I want to make sure that I highlight without keeping us here all day is that we also manage the town's talent bank and recommendations for appointments to committees and commissions. And I encourage everyone here and listening who will watch later to go online and find the application and to look for what might interest you, where your skill set might be best used, and apply. We do have a number of openings coming up in June. So please do that. We're looking for all of our town to participate in its government. And with that, are there any other questions or thoughts or concerns from those in attendance? No? No one's who's chimed in over there with you, Cindy, through any communication?
No, I just was going to ask if Ms. Petro wanted to speak on the non-agenda item. Okay.
Okay. And from our committee, any other comments, thoughts, concerns? All right. Oh, yes, sir. Paul.
Yeah, I have to, Paul Shear, Sea Pines, and I've managed residential property all my life, and in a jurisdiction that has outlawed pesticides and herbicides. And I think we did that on the island here. Please watch it. There's no replacement for these things. We are infested with bed bugs we can't get rid of. We are full of dandelions we can't get rid of. There are no replacements, and you can hear it all you want about replacements. None of them work. So if you have that in place, you should watch it, because it's a real issue. Getting rid of it just because it sounds good and it feels great. There has never been anything invented yet that will kill weeds or get rid of this vermin that your buildings and your apartment buildings, your multi-res, your short-term, your your motels and hotels on the island are gonna be full of, unless they can bring something in, or you can make an exemption for them.
Thank you. And I wanted to thank, we have new people in the gallery here today, and I wanted to thank you all for coming out, and we encourage everyone to join us. And with that, we're adjourned.
Bravo. Worked out very well.